Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Guardians of the CLE podcast. I'm your host, Melanie Kirby, and back from his little sabbatical is my co-host, James Ellifritz. James, how are we doing?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. I'm glad to be back. Get away from the day-to-day stuff. So, did I watch as much Guardians baseball as I wanted to? No, because lots of things going on. But hey, such is life, right? And same thing with our team. Such is life. Sometimes bad news comes, and we have to ask ourselves, how do we overcome these challenges?
Well, you did not miss much the last week. It was just to sum it up, we have not won a series since the Washington Nationals. And prior to that, it was in Oakland when the first road trip of the year. We won the series versus the Mariners and the Athletics. And we've been losing series ever since. We have a lot to get into here tonight. And James, I feel like you're gonna be the good cop. I'm gonna be the bad cop because I'm slowly getting more and more frustrated with things that are easily correctable that just refuse to be done. But before we get into that, I wish I had better news, but when it rains, it definitely pours, not just with the weather outside, not just with our lives, but also the Guardians pitching. Zach Meisel, Mandy Bell, and some others tweeted out today that top pitching prospect Daniel Espino, who we all know is one of the big three, along with Tanner Bybee, who we're already seeing, and Gavin Williams, who's knocking on the door at AAA. Unfortunately, we're going to have to wait a while longer to see Daniel Espino. He hasn't pitched since last April already, and it was just revealed today he recently underwent anterior capsule repair on his right shoulder. He's expected to now miss 12 to 14 months, which will put him around May to July of 2024. So that's going to be a little over 2 years since he last pitched in a game. And it's not an easy surgery to come back from. Luckily, he's only 22 years old, so he has that going for him. But I mean, guys like Dallas Braden, Johan Santana, Rich Harden, Chris Young, I mean, it pretty much ended their careers. Granted, they were older when they had it. A more positive, kind of a hope shot example is Julio Urias. He underwent the same procedure. He's had a very, very good major league career. Hopefully the same can be said for Espino, but James, he needs to be added to the 40-man roster this offseason, which they obviously will add him. And Justin Latta pointed out that he's either going to have to start next year on the 60-day injured list, which essentially starts the clock on his service time, or they're going to have to basically operate with a 39-man roster until Daniel Espino is ready to come back. So it's kind of a double-edged sword on how they handle Daniel Espino moving forward. Before I say a couple other things about this, what are your kind of initial thoughts here in this?
When you hear about it, if you go back, anybody that listened to the podcast during the off season when we had Todd Paquette on, and I asked him about, who's out of our big group down and our starting pitchers down on the farm. I said, who's the one? And he said, by far it was Espino.
One of the
Basically,
best ever, he said.
yeah, he is like the one. And then you had, Bybee is like a 1A, and then you have Williams as like a 1B. And then, we don't want to, discredit Logan Allen as well. But, to lose the one that legitimately showed his stuff that he could separate from what we're already seeing with Tanner Bybee, that's, really impressive. So all we can do is, hope and pray that this young man, when I hear about this too, who you think about is Danny Salazar. But at least
Adam Miller.
Salazar, at least he came up and got some big league time. He tried to fight through his injuries. I know it's a separate injury, but it just reminds me of somebody very talented that injuries just took part of his career away. And like you said, 22 years old. All we can do is hope for the best. He's going to put his rehab in. That we have one of the best organizations as far as developing pitching. Now I hope we can be one of the best organizations that can rehab our pitchers.
Yeah, so kind of the last thing I want to say with this is he's kind of like Jacob deGrom. I mean, and what I gather from this is it's just not natural for the human body to throw 102 miles an hour. I mean, it's hard enough coming out of the bullpen, doing it maybe a few times a week, whatever, 20 pitches. But when you're a starting pitcher throwing 100 plus miles an hour every 5 days for, I don't know, 75 to 95 pitches, that's going to take a toll on your body. And we see Jacob deGrom. When he's healthy, he is one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. But his problem is staying off the injured list, which he's currently on the injured list with Texas right now on May 3rd. I fear it's going to be a similar type thing with Daniel Espino, and I don't want to write him off as that yet because, we wish him nothing but the best, and there's no denying his talent. But once again, I'll say the best ability is availability. He could be the greatest pitcher Major League Baseball has ever seen, but if he can't get on the field and stay on the field, it's not going to matter how talented he is. So he's going to attack that rehab. He's going to be living in the gym as soon as he can be, I'm sure. So we just hope for the best for Daniel moving forward. But thank God that, like you said, Tanner Bybee appears to be for real. Logan T. Allen had his bounce back season that we were all looking for. We didn't know how he'd respond after his struggles at AAA last year. Joey Cantillo down in Akron is so far healthy and succeeding. Gavin Williams got the bump to AAA. He's knocking on the door, which we're going to get into shortly with their rotation plans moving forward. But the starting pitching, thank God for the depth that we have, and we're not reliant on Daniel Espino to come up and make an impact now. But man, it would have been nice to see him. But James, why don't you start us off on a positive note here before I fully jump off the ledge and let us know why it might not be time to panic yet.
I do want to comment one more thing about Espino, though. One thing to remember, and I know we're talking injury today, but players can still thrive in the major leagues when they get there. Like one example that I can think of is John Smoltz. John Smoltz was a Hall of Famer, starting pitcher, but then eventually later in his career went to the bullpen. Is that something that maybe we need to consider, that Espino becomes more class A type than to start thinking of him as, and when I say class A, I'm thinking like the, multi-inning type closer. We're so far from that conversation can be had later, but I'm just trying to, think on a positive note for him that there's still light at the end of the tunnel. Like I said, 22 years old, and we got a great organization. We'll see what happens. But yeah, as far as April goes, it's typically a bad month for Cleveland baseball, not just our record, but, with the weather, everybody gets all excited. Can't wait to get down to Progressive Field for opening day, sell it out, and then the next game, plenty of seats available, right? And, we want to be excited and want to be able to attend. Based on that weather, it's tough. But with last year, started with the win-loss, we still managed to win the division, right? We were at 9-12 last year. We had the late start based on the lockout. The Twins helped us later in the year with their injuries and also not being able to win games, period, based on their chemistry. But we were pretty lucky. If you look between this year and last year, not a huge difference. Both with losing records, but the championships and divisions aren't necessarily won in April. We got a long ways to go. We're finally here going to get some nice weather this weekend. So hopefully that's going to help lead to better play at Progressive Field this weekend.
Yeah. I mean, so I can kind of see both sides of this. They're lucky that they're going through these offensive struggles now because the Twins aren't pulling away. They have some issues of their own. And the White Sox are a total shit show, who I'm pretty sure is going to, sell pretty hard at the deadline. They have a bottom 5 farm system they have for years. They have no direction. I think it's time they blow it up. I wouldn't be surprised that they fire Rick Hahn, and they kind of just start from scratch there. They're kind of like they did in Detroit. But my concern, so we kind of worked through the pitching issues a little bit. We brought Bybee and LTA up. They kind of sparked that rotation. And now there's questions moving forward. Who's the starting five going to be? You know, Tito said the other day that Bieber, Allen, Bybee, and Cal have spots in the rotation right now. And that Plesac and Battenfield through side sessions. And they're not ready to reveal yet who that fifth starter is going to be. I give it like 3 weeks that it's going to be Gavin Williams. There's no doubt in my mind Gavin Williams will be up here soon. I mean, Bybee had like 3 starts in AAA, I think. The Guardians aren't an organization that really utilize AAA as like a big developmental level. That's AA for them. Guys will stay at AA for a while. They'll get seasoned there. AAA, these guys make a few starts and they're up in the majors. So the fact that Gavin Williams got that bump when Bybee got called up tells me he's going to be up here soon. The last positive I have, and the last positive I have before I have a stroke talking about all the negatives is I think I said it when I did the episode last week, is oftentimes when you have struggles like this kind of out of the gate, it kind of jump starts that change that we're all we're wanting to see anyways. Like last year, they got rid of Bradley Zimmer, Bobby Bradley, Yu Chang, Jake Bowers the year before. They get rid of Ben Gamble, I think was another one in 2021.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
And that's when the prospects start to come up and be able to shine. That's what we're seeing on the pitching side. Now I'm going to get right on into the negative. We're going to address the elephant in the room.
Go ahead, Mel.
This absolutely humiliating offense that we are putting on the field. I'm going to be like, nobody is fearing this lineup. There is not one freaking pitcher in all of Major League Baseball who looks at this lineup and says, oh my God, I'm scared of this guy. Not even Jose Ramirez. Nobody in this lineup is doing anything. And what pisses me off the most, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, right? Why in the world are we running the same exact lineup out there every single day for the last 5 weeks with zero success? There isn't one guy. There's not one guy in this lineup who looks comfortable at his spot in the order. I looked at our stats this morning and I asked my followers on Twitter to share their frustrations for topics we're going to get into in a minute. And I was looking at our offensive stats and I wanted to throw up my breakfast. It is even worse than I thought it was. Here's this, James. We're 28th in the major leagues in OPS at 648. We're last in slugging percentage at 341. The Tampa Bay Rays are leading Major League Baseball at 524. We're almost 200 points lower than the Tampa Bay Rays.
Yeah, but they also had like a home run streak, right?
Yeah. I'm sure that helps it. Worst in batting average at 227 and second last in home runs with 17. You want to hear the real kicker? Our outfield has a combined whopping 2 home runs on May 3rd. They have played, how many freaking games have they played? Too many. 30. They played 30 games.
30 games, yep.
And our 3 outfielders have 2 home runs. That is not going to play at the major league level. You can't have slap contact hitters at your corner outfield spots. First base, you're getting nothing. I mean, Naylor and Bell, I'm okay with that. Jose's going to come around. But when you have nothing at shortstop, you can't also have nothing at all 3 outfield positions. It's just not going to work.
Are you trying to say we should play our home games in Mexico City?
Yeah.
Because balls were flying out of the yard.
Send them all to Mexico. I'm ready to send them all down if we could. Send them all down to AAA for a week. Let them learn how to hit the baseball like big boys, and then they can come up and contribute to a major league team. Because if I see Andres Jimenez square up to bunt one more time, I'm going to go play in traffic on 480. I cannot see it anymore. I lose a little bit of my life every single time. Why? Who are you bunting for? Andres? Miles Straw behind you? Mike Zunino, who had 3 strikeouts last night? Who are you moving the run over for? Nobody can drive him in but you.
He must have saw something. I mean, yes, he's struggling, but all the numbers you just mentioned, I'm going to tell you right now, and I know
It's
that
disgusting.
we've had this conversation a little bit or text back and forth with our Believeland media head Kevin as well, but about Tito Francona and his decision making. And I'm telling you right now, out of all the numbers we just talked about and who's where and what in the lineup, I'm telling you, the only thing he's really looking at is the games back column right now, and we're 3 games back of the Twins. And as long as we can win the division and get that 3 seed, I think they think that that's acceptable going into October. And right now, the way we're playing, struggling in April, which is not way out of the realm of what we've been doing in our team history recently, that is the key. It's games back, winning the division. We know the division's terrible. We know we have one other team that is our competition in Minnesota Twins. But I'm telling you, I really think
they could still come out and win it.
But you're not moving Quan, right? You said about corner outfielders and having power. We're accepting what Quan is.
Here's a hot
field,
take.
Right?
Steven Kwan and Miles Straw cannot be 2 of your 3 starting outfielders at the same time. I think they banked on the fact that in the minors, Steven Kwan showed 10 to 12 home run potential. He hasn't shown a single bit of that up here at the major league level on a consistent basis. I think that's why they didn't extend him yet. I don't think you can have 2 of your starting outfield spots giving you 0 slugging potential. Yeah. And even if they went out and traded for a right fielder and kind of made Brennan like the rover, I don't think you can rely on only right field to give you all of your outfield slugging potential. That's my concern. Well, and I love Steven Kwan and Miles Straw. I love them both, but you got to have slugging somewhere.
Yeah,
you just have to.
It's got to come from that right field spot. It's got to be Oscar. It's got to be Brennan. If not, who else do we have? We dipping down into
Valera
AAA?
Would be up by now. If he didn't have that unfortunate hand injury, I bet you he would have been called
You're
up.
You're probably right.
Yep. Because he does have that home run potential. He's going to strike out, but that's going to happen with power hitters. This organization, I think, in my opinion, has placed way too much of an emphasis on not striking out, even all the way through the minors. Because you look past George Valera and John Kenzie Noel, you don't have any power anywhere. It's like a million Steven Kwans like cloned at every position all over the field. And that's what's concerning is like, we're not a team that goes out and spends $300 million on Shohei Ohtani or Juan Soto or Manny Machado. And if you don't have it coming up in your system, where are you getting your slugging from? You can't keep winning. I mean, we saw what it did to him in October. You can't win October baseball that way. You're not going to be able to string together 6 singles to score 1 run against the best pitchers in baseball. You're not playing the Detroit Tigers and Kansas City Royals in October. Like, you have to have somebody who can hit the ball over the fence or plug those gaps regularly. And like Jose, I mean, Jose's baseball savant page looks incredible right now. Like, I'm not worried about Jose. He's finally barreling the baseball and he's providing some of that. A lot of our guys are just really unlucky too.
Well, let's touch on this. Is Jimenez in this 2 spot where we wanted him?
Yeah. So now that you said that,
we at least have that, right? We think that we're at least putting guys in the right spot.
But will Tito do it? That's my main problem is that I love Tito, Hall of Fame manager, right? But he's so old school and hard-headed that he doesn't seem willing to make these changes. And I almost feel like they're going to coddle Ahmed Rosario all season to not do anything to potentially hurt his free agency, which, like, he's doing a pretty damn good job of sabotaging it himself.
You know what, Mel? He keeps winning divisions year after year. And this is a guy that helped the Red Sox, the Boston Red Sox, break through and win a World Series. And I know he's getting more towards the end of his career.
Like, that's
and
10 years ago.
And he doesn't have my guy right here, Manny Ramirez. He don't have Manny Ramirez in the 4-hole. He doesn't have David Ortiz. And I get it. But we could go back to Eric Wedge and Manny Acta, some of these managers that, just struggled here. And
I don't want him fired.
Right.
I just want Ahmed Rosario out of the damn 2-hole.
He's your pinata. He's your
God's
guardian
sakes.
pinata. And no, I get it. I mean, the only thing.
Jesus Christ. He's in the bottom 10% in the league in expected batting average. So he's not even unlucky like the rest. He's just not good so far. He's seeing 30% sliders, which has went up exponentially over the last 3 years because the book's out on Ahmed Rosario. Right. Throw him sliders in the other batter's box. He's going to swing and nearly fall on his ass every single time. I mean, James, high leverage situations. Ahmed Rosario's hitting 182 with a 269 OBP, a 182 slugging percentage, and he has 10 strikeouts and hit into 2 double plays.
Yeah, I'd love to see Jimenez stay in that, get stuck in that second spot, move Rosario down permanently.
Yeah. What does it hurt is kind of where I'm at. You know what I mean? Like, if you're struggling this badly, why aren't you moving some guys around just to try to, like, spark something?
Here's what I think, though, coming into this weekend series for Jimenez. Does he or does he not play well against the Twins? Weather's going to be warmer. Twins are in town. Think of it the same way we looked at Josh Bell going back to D.C. Let's see what Jimenez does this weekend to maybe really start getting into routine for the month of May.
Yeah, and kind of to wrap up on Jimenez here, we had Joseph D, Duxie Duxon, and Euphoria Like Sports all chime in and basically state the same thing we've been discussing. How the offense is painful to watch at the moment. No one's swinging the bat well. What signs are there for optimism? And like we've said, I think some pretty impactful changes can happen in-house to hopefully at least get us to the trade deadline and keep us above water offensively. But Tito in the front office has to be willing to have some uncomfortable conversations with some guys, which might be happening with Zach Plesac as we speak. So maybe they're going to get to that point, because Tito sounded really frustrated with Jimenez last night in his press conference. He's like, no, he did that. Because I think Zach Meisel asked him, did you have him bunt? He's like, no, he did that on his own. Tito doesn't normally come out and say that. So I think now we might see him pull him to the side. But this 2-hole conversation gets a little more interesting, because I think the problem with Jimenez is I think he's seeing pitches differently at the bottom of the order than he would hitting in front of Jose. Right now, he's only seeing 40% of pitches in the strike zone, but he has a 40% chase rate. So that tells me he wants to hit, not get pitched around, and he's expanding his strike zone. If you're hitting in front of Jose Ramirez, they're going to want to pitch to you, not Jose Ramirez.
Mm-hmm.
So when Jimenez is making contact, he's not making hard contact. He's not barreling that baseball, which is why his slugging percentage is down a little bit more than usual, but he's still third on the team in F4, and his xWOBA is 295. So he's getting a tad bit unlucky, but for the same reasons I mentioned about Ahmed, I think swapping them in the lineup is one of the best solutions that you could make right now. And guess what? If it doesn't work, flip it back. I mean, do we even know if Ahmed Rosario cares? Do we even know if he cares? Like we make it this big thing like, oh, Tito doesn't want to hurt his feelings. You're not getting demoted. You're not going to AAA. We're just moving you down a few spots in the lineup. I mean, Jesus, look at your stats. Are you shocked?
Right.
He might not even care where he hits in the lineup, but we're all making it this big thing like his feelings will get hurt. I
Well,
mean,
everything you brought up is what we keep hearing on Twitter, right? We play this disgusting brand of baseball. And when we don't win, it sure gets really disgusting, doesn't it? We get tired when small ball doesn't work. But it's
the
not like
expectations too.
Yeah, the expectations, you're right, of the success of last season, in general as a record, but also as individual players that did really well. With Quan finishing second, rookie of the year. There's some guys that are going to struggle this year mentally, but it's still April. I think once it gets
It's May now,
warm,
James. It's May. The
but
calendar's flipped. It was supposed to magically get better.
It's
soon
going
as
to
the
get better, but
calendar
I
flipped.
think, well, you know what? We should tie it into the weather then. Because I heard Tito talk about that the game was that last night, I think, with Bybee, that was one of the warmest games they had played in like 2 weeks. They were looking forward to it. And that's in the 50s. You know what I mean? So this weekend's going to feel fantastic when it's actually in the 70s playing back home.
And we got, Minnesota. So they head home for Minnesota, the Tigers, and the Los Angeles Angels. So if you can get past the Twins, I mean, Detroit and LA is looking pretty good. I'll be there Mother's Day weekend on Friday with my kids. So it says Logan Allen slated to start. That would be super cool. But I have a feeling this rotation might look a little different. I mean, I better hope so, because if not, the Twin series, we're projected to have Zach Plesac and Cal Quantrill as two of our starters.
Well,
so
let me share a Plesac story. So I was listening on local sports radio, and Andre Knott was the guest, and he was talking about how when Plesac first came out with the Indians at that time, that even his uncle Dan Plesac, who played for the Brewers, and he's on MLB Network, had mentioned that he thought he saw him more realistically as a bullpen guy. And that goes back however many years ago that's been. So he didn't even see, here's a guy that, it's his relative. He's played in the major leagues and has seen Zach's stuff for a long time. And he's flat out saying, hey, this guy should be in the bullpen. So there you have it. I think that's the direction he's going. And if he doesn't like that, we know where else he's going to go.
I agree. I think the other little move they can make, switch out Tyler Freeman and Gabriel Arias for right now, for two reasons. I think Freeman's style of hitting is better suited to only play a couple times a week. I mean, we saw him already come up and get a couple hits like it was nothing. And he's also faster. I think part of the reason with that, like Jimenez is bunting last night, but Arias isn't very fast on first base, which allowed them to throw Arias out at second. So I think in that utility role coming off the bench, a little bit of speed would be helpful too, and get Gabriel Arias' confidence back up. I mean, he just seems down in the dumps right now.
And Mel, you were talking about good cop, bad cop, and I'm going to come in and say this here, where if we made all these changes in the lineup, if we make all these roster moves and it doesn't work, does that not feel like panic mode this early in the season?
So I think they know they kind of got to tread water. I assume they'll make a move.
And that's why I'm saying
to do it.
The game's back column is what matters, because if we can go into, say we win the night in New York and the Twins fall, and we can go into the series down 2 games and maybe sweep the Twins, we're right there. You know what I mean? We're right there.
There is a path.
Yes.
Feeling better. I mean, just as quickly as they get in these slumps, they can come out of them. We saw last year when they got into those 2 slumps in April and then 4th of July. When you're not finding holes and you're a contact team, it's going to feel like the sky's falling. But that is going to be it for this week. We do have a game tonight, the series finale in New York that you mentioned. Shane Bieber's on the mound versus Clark Schmidt. That's going to be an interesting matchup. See if Shane Bieber can bounce back a little bit, have another good start like he had in Boston. And then, like I said, the Twins come in this weekend. So I want to thank everybody once again for listening, for submitting some frustrations. Again, we play in a weak division. It's going to be okay. They just got to be willing to make some changes. But in the meantime, head on over to BelieveLandMediaLLC.com for all our podcasts and written content for all the professional sports, Buckeyes, high school sports. We got you covered on all ends. And make sure you're following the Guardians of the CLE podcast page at Guardians OTCLE. You can find James and I's Twitter handles on that page. Thank you once again. We're knocking on the door of the top 5 Guardians podcasts. It's been a pleasure being able to talk Guardians with you guys each and every week. Let's just hope, I'm going to be praying to the baseball gods that Gavin Williams is up here soon. So I do not see a series with Plesac and Cal as our projected starters. But
I can't wait to have a pod where we don't talk about Plesac or Rosario at all.
Those are the 2 right now. Yep, those are the 2. And Karinchak, we didn't even get into him. Dude's not a high leverage pitcher. Get him out of that high leverage role. That's the 3rd game he's blown this year in almost an identical scenario. Lets the inherited runner score and then gives up the homer. So again, just difficult conversations. We got the talent. We have the depth to be able to work around it. Let's just hope they keep their heads above water. Sam Hench's last note, Sam Hench's due back this weekend against the Twins. Definitely wanted to have him back against the Twins. That's huge. Tristan threw a bullpen, hopefully by the end of this month. Still nothing on Savali. So riding with what we got starters wise. But thank you everybody once again. We're going to head out of here. We will see you next week. And stay safe, stay healthy, and go Guardians.
Go Guardians.